member for Castries South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I see you finally woke up. Mr. Speaker, the member from Ancillary Castries was snoring a short while ago, and he's finally awake as I'm about to speak. And his reaction was, ah. Mr. Speaker, it's late at night, but Mr. Speaker, we all knew that it was going to be a very long night once we did not decide to adjourn, because the most important motion is still to be presented to this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to start off with the member for Castries North who assured me that he would never keep me in the dark, and he would always be willing to inform me of what goes on in my constituency.
He's not keeping an eye on you.
No, that's for you. He's keeping an eye on you, former prime ministers, so they can keep an eye on each other. But he tells me, Mr. Speaker, since the honorable member has not said anything to me about quite a lot of works taking place in Basse Joseph and in Marigot, Mr. Speaker, who really is the source for all those works that are taking place? But Mr. Speaker, of course I'm not complaining, and I've told the people of Castries South that when works have been done and it is needed for the community, accept it. But Mr. Speaker, it is a different thing for you to encroach on persons' lands, putting in drainage and steps on private lands without even discussing to the community, without anyone knowing the details of what's been done. But Mr. Speaker, these days, there are two persons on the government side campaigning in Castries South, so I'm not even sure which one really is inspiring the works to take place. But I welcome the works, and Mr. Speaker,
Your councilwoman, they're rushing to come there soon.
Mr. Speaker, only time will tell, Mr. Speaker. Only time will tell, because, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member, do not be...
No, Mr. Speaker. I'm on my feet, and I'll probably be here for the hour. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm in no hurry, Mr. Speaker. I will take... But, Mr. Speaker, on a serious note, the Prime Minister announced all the roads that would be fixed under the loan arrangement as provided in the motion. I'm not being told he did not mention all the roads. So if he said some, Mr. Speaker, I was about to comment that none of the roads in Castries South were mentioned. Now, I know the honorable member for Castries North will speak of primary roads and secondary roads and tertiary roads, and I'm not sure exactly how the categorization apply to the Basse Joseph Road, which I want to start with, Mr. Speaker. The road has virtually given way already, Mr. Speaker. And in the last set of rains, there are instances just before Frances' home where the road is actually sinking, Mr. Speaker. And, Mr. Speaker, there is a need for the Basse Joseph Road to be redone completely. Mr. Speaker, I believe there have been attempts at potholing over the last few years, over and over, Mr. Speaker, but the road needs attention. And I would like, Mr. Speaker, if all the roads were not mentioned by the Prime Minister, that at least the Basse Joseph Road, for starters, will be included. And if not, the member for Castries North, Mr. Speaker, will ensure that the Basse Joseph Road is included in the other roads, because I heard the Prime Minister mention that an additional $20 million will be put aside for roads programs outside of the $42 million that was mentioned. And, Mr. Speaker, I have to mention the Marigot Main Road. Mr. Speaker, I don't know about Requin Highway, Mr. Speaker. I don't. Mr. Speaker, I mean, the Marigot Main Road is a very important road, Mr. Speaker. Marigot is one of the most scenic spots in St. Lucia. One of two marinas in St. Lucia. Every single day, tourists traverse this road to get a sighting of Marigot Bay. Mr. Speaker, Marigot Bay is very important for our tourism products. And the Marigot Road should be repaired, Mr. Speaker. Not for the constituency alone, but because it is part of our tourism product. And the road has deteriorated rapidly, Mr. Speaker. And again, I appeal to the member for Castries North. If the Marigot Road is not part of the $42 million road program, can he ensure that it's included in the $20 million road program, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, I will not bring up all the roads in Castries South that need attention, Mr. Speaker, but I must mention the Bassa Joseph Road and the Marigot Road. Mr. Speaker, there are also serious issues with drainage. I'm not sure if the monies for the road program only relates to road construction, and I assume, Mr. Speaker, and the member for Castries North can clarify, but it also speaks of drainage in some of the areas, because some of the areas in the constituency suffer from serious drainage problems, Mr. Speaker. Banan, Monlatok, and I must say, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Infrastructure has recently started some works in Monlatok, much needed works, Mr. Speaker, where water was coming over the edge into people's houses below. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that when one speaks of road program, there are instances where you have to deal with drainage issues, separate from even any road construction, which is why I took an interest in the special works that have been done in Bassa Joseph, that nobody seems to know who issued the contract, who is the contractor, Mr. Speaker. But at least the member for Castries North has assured me, like you said in this house, he would never keep me in the dark. So I suspect it's not been done by the Department of Infrastructure. It might be done by CCC or maybe by CDP, whichever one of the two. So, Mr. Speaker, on the aspect of which roads, I want to stick an appeal for the Bassa Joseph Road and the Marigot Road. Mr. Speaker, in the earlier motion which we debated, I raised the issue of what was meant by terms and conditions that are accepted. And I want for the record to raise it again. The Prime Minister in his rebuttal circulated a document to suggest that previously for the St. Jude Hospital loan under government on this side, the same language was contained. And I would, Mr. Speaker, say that I would disagree with it too. I was not in the House at the time, and I do not know how the debate proceeded. But I would have hoped that at least somebody tried to explain what is meant by terms and conditions. And if that was not done, it was a major failing on the part of the opposition that they never asked the government what is meant by terms and conditions that you're accepting. Because I believe it is fair for legislators who are approving borrowing to ask those questions. And if you did not ask it, then you fail. But I have a responsibility to ask it. I have a responsibility to ask it. And I will ask it again. Are there any special terms and conditions that apply to the loan? Are there? And the member from Strozel said, don't ask any questions in here. Go and ask Slasper. Slasper is not a member of the House. Not Strozel. Soufre for Sir Jacques. No, I forgot. The member from Strozel did not understand politicians. That's what he said. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, we cannot just say go and ask Slasper the questions, because Slasper is not in this House. But at least in this instance, the minister is here. All I need to know, Honorable Speaker, are there any exceptional terms and conditions that would go with this loan? The Prime Minister, in his rebuttal, I'll go, made a startling point. And the member from Babono agreed with it, that a contractor has already been selected for the airport redevelopment before final details and drawings are even been produced. And we are asking,
and before the loan was approved.
even before the loan was approved, even before the loan was approved. Even before the guarantee was given, the contractor has been chosen. And I asked the question, how is that possible? How can you select a contractor for the largest single infrastructural project in St. Lucia before the drawings are finished, before the loan has been approved, and before the guarantee has been? And Mr. Speaker, you know what we were told? It was done as a favor to Taiwan because they're the ones giving us the loan. And secondly, because the company is well known for building airports around the world. Now, is that a criteria for giving a contractor the largest single infrastructural project in St. Lucia? And I want to ask, and the minister, the member for Castries North, may wish to answer, have we a similar requirement, or has the government taken a similar decision in respect of the $42 million for roads? Are we deciding that because Taiwan has given us the loan, we are therefore going to have a general contractor that is Taiwanese?
No, not that one.
I don't know, I'm asking.
I want it for the boys, that's for C-Power, not for...
Is that the case, Mr. Speaker? Is there a special condition that says that it must be a Taiwanese contractor? I mean, I don't know if we really reflected, Mr. Speaker, on what the Prime Minister said, you know. I mean, if we really reflect on what he said, it's a bizarre admission by the Prime Minister that the largest infrastructural project in the history of St. Lucia, the contractor was chosen as a favor to the Taiwanese because they are the ones giving us the loan, not grant. Not a grant. If you're giving a grant, I can understand the government saying, I'm giving you a grant of $100 million, and we want to nominate the contractor. A loan that we have to repay. And it's because they are good in construction. Will the member of Castries North, from Castries North, indicate whether a contractor has been favored and chosen in the same manner? I think we should know that. I heard the member from Castries South say that under this project, subcontractors from all over St. Lucia will be benefited. And Bedford trucks that are yellow and blue will also be revived. I just need to know, Mr. Speaker, whether the provisions under the Finance Act for tendering and procurement will be followed. I think we are right in asking those questions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my final comment on the roads part of this motion. Now I have to speak about education and then housing. My final comment, Mr. Speaker, is that I am not opposed to borrowing for the building of roads. I am not. You will not find me standing here like I did for the previous loan, saying I disapprove fundamentally with the rationale for the loan. I hope, Mr. Speaker, and I'm telling you, I expect when you're in opposition, you will suffer. I expect that. I expect that. And that you're expected to cry. You understand that? I have my own personal views on how those matters should be dealt with, matters of state. But I hope at least the Marigo Road, because of its critical importance for the tourism industry, will be resurfaced, redone, Mr. Speaker. I've also made a case for Bassett Joseph, and I hope in the next 2 years, attention will be given. So that's my take, Mr. Speaker, on the roads component. As to education, Mr. Speaker, I heard a member from Ancillary Canaries say a very bizarre thing earlier on in his presentation. He said we were grateful to the Minister of Education for her generosity. Grateful for her generosity for the repairing of schools in his constituency. There is no need for us to be grateful for the generosity of the minister. No. Mr. Speaker, and it's funny, huh? It's funny. But let me explain to you why it stood out for me, Mr. Speaker. Let me explain why. It's not that I'm ungrateful. It's not because I'm ungrateful. It's not because I'm ungrateful. Let me continue. Let me continue. The Prime Minister stood in this house at the last sitting, and he said to the students from Sir Arthur Lewis, suggesting that government was almost doing a favor. They were subsidizing students. You remember that, Mr. Speaker? At the last sitting in this house, at the last sitting in this house, the Prime Minister said it. And I made the point, Mr. Speaker, that we're not subsidizing, we're investing in our young people. We're investing in our young people.
That's correct.
I said so, Mr. Speaker. And every member here can remember that. We are investing in the people, and the young people who said they should not feel a favor was being done. Listen to me carefully, that a favor was being done to them because government was subsidizing their education. But you see, maybe we just won't agree on it, honorable members. I don't think young people should be grateful that their education is being subsidized. I believe as a state, you have an obligation. The same member from Castries who spoke about fundamental human rights, huh? But Mr. Speaker, we'll come to that one in a bit. So, Mr. Speaker, when monies are going to be spent on schools, I would wish, and certainly when the member from Miku North speaks, to indicate the schools that will benefit from such repair. Is Sir Arthur Lewis included in this? I am aware, and the honorable member can clarify, that students from Sir Arthur were relocated to the George Charles Secondary School, and the students from George Charles Secondary School were taken to the John Odlum Secondary School, now Stanley John Memorial, and a merger took place. And Sir Arthur students, like I said, were put at the George Charles School. But they've had to leave. They've had to move out of that school. And certainly, the honorable member from Miku North can tell us what will become of that school. Is it an abandoned property? Is money here going to be used for the renovation of that school? Well, now the member from Bavno is saying, yes, money will be used to renovate that school. But you just said that's why we put 10 million. So I would like to know, honorable member, Mr. Speaker, is the Lakwamengo Combined School included in the monies that are going to be spent? I'm asking, because surely when I visit the school, I can say to the school that yes, they will be included in the school repair program. Where is Robert Lewis? But the point is, you're coming here asking my support for the borrowing of money that will repair schools. And I'm asking you if the schools in my constituency will benefit, and you're asking me where is Robert Lewis in all of that. Mr. Speaker, there is a... Anyway, Mr. Speaker, we also need to know, Mr. Speaker, from the member from Miku North at the appropriate time, maybe not tonight, what exactly is going to be the policy as it relates to Sir Arthur and the financing of education in his school. Because I've heard comments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I agree, Mr. Speaker. The member from Labrie earlier said that we should borrow some money to pay for some counseling for the member from
Honorable members, there's too much noise in this house.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. And you must admit, Mr. Speaker, that the member from Answer Canaries is moving beyond being jovial and cross-talk and is becoming rather disrespectful to the chamber. To tell an honorable member on his feet to sit down, is a little disrespect. We can tease and joke, but Mr. Speaker, so let me ask the member from Miku North, Mr. Speaker, in her statement, at least give us an idea of who is going to benefit, the scope of works that will be involved, so at least we can be comforted. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the final component of this loan is housing. And Mr. Speaker, I want to hurry up, Mr. Speaker. I want to hurry up, Mr. Speaker. The member from Castries Central made a brilliant presentation, Mr. Speaker. I can associate myself with almost every word she said, except her last two sentences. Because having analyze the housing situation in her constituency, which is very similar to many areas in my constituency, and her appeal for a genuine housing program for lower income earning persons, and some people are not even income earning, no income, I can associate with that. But unfortunately, she went on to commend the borrowing for housing program that doesn't cater for the exact people which I think, like her, are most critically in need of housing in this country. First of all, Mr. Speaker, I heard it's Shock Gardens Estate. I don't know, I'm not even sure where Shock Gardens Estate. And maybe, you know, I was hoping the member from Castries office, who's a Minister of Housing, could have at least told us where's Shock Gardens Estate. And I'm at, by Marigo? Let me tell you, you getting lost in chassis, Marigo, you know about. Listen, Mr. Speaker, because he gets lost in chassis sometimes, so far less, how you know about Marigo? Mr. Speaker, but let's think about it. Let's just focus on what the member from Castries Central said. If you listened to her and you took what she said seriously, you would have to conclude that the priority for any housing project in St. Lucia has to be for those people she mentioned. Has to be, Mr. Speaker. It has to. There's no other option, Mr. Speaker. And I would love to know that the housing project in Shock Gardens Estate, what would be the cost of those lots? What would be the cost of those houses? Who are the people that's going to benefit from it? And to ask the question, Mr. Speaker, whether the priorities are clearly established, Mr. Speaker. Because I would love to see a housing project for the persons of Old Cemetery, Fuasho, Monlatok, Monkey Tongue, Firehouse. You know, we have so many areas, Mr. Speaker. Oh, you know, I left out the member of Castries North for regional area residents. Mr. Speaker, but we need to focus on it. This is a serious matter. And the point made by the member from Castries Central is very serious. And I look forward, Mr. Speaker, whether under this government or under the next government after the next election, that a focus can be placed on exactly what she identified. What work? Mr. Speaker, the member from Castries South is teasing me to say things I do not want to say tonight, Mr. Speaker. Yes, work was being done in Labat. I don't know who gave the contract. I wasn't sure if it was CCC or CDP, because they have two agencies spending money in Castries South now. But, Mr. Speaker, whenever works are done in the constituency and the people benefit, I'm grateful for it.
Sure, not the city council?
No, I don't think it's the city council. I don't think so. I know it's the member of Castries South is behind it. And I heard he was supposed to come in Marigo 2 days ago to give out some contracts, whatnot. A group of people there, they said they were told through certain circles they had to come there to get contracts. But that's what they told me. Honorable Guy Joseph will be coming to give contracts. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I know the benefit of persons from lower income earning families getting to own a piece of land and a house. It can truly transform lives, Mr. Speaker. It can truly transform lives. And I want to appeal, Mr. Speaker, that we focus on that sector in our country and ensure that they too can get support and the provisions for them to own their own houses, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I am not against borrowing for the right reasons. I would have liked it to be slightly different in terms of its implementation. But, Mr. Speaker, let us focus on the people that need it the most. Thank you very much.